Hello and welcome to another episode of Leaders of Transformation. Today we're going to talk about really speaking your voice and standing out. We have a wonderful guest here, Regina Huber. She is this founder and CEO of Transform Your Performance. She is a multicultural transformational leadership coach and consultant for inclusive diversity. She's had extensive corporate and entrepreneurial experience on 5 continents and has a passion for diverse leadership, co-creation, and dance. She is an international speaker. She is the author of a book called, it's actually Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine, and also a white paper on diversity and inclusion initiatives that thrive with maximum leadership support. So she is very, very talented. She is passionate about what she does. She helps companies to leverage their diverse talent and transform their diversity inclusion strategy. And she has a signature methodology that she uses to do that. She speaks 5 languages and has had 18 years of experience in international corporate environments and so forth. So one of the things I also wanted to mention, because I think this is really amazing, she's owned businesses in Argentina, Brazil, and the U.S., and has worked with clients on several continents, holds a global advisor role at several Africa and U.S. based projects, supporting female advancement and emerging leaders, and has received the Humanitarian Award by Global Goodwill Ambassadors. So Regina, welcome to Leaders of Transformation. We're excited that you're here today.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm super thrilled to be here.
Well, I wanted to read all that so that we get a sort of an overview of your experience. You're not just talking about it, you're not just teaching it, but you're actually living it every day with the roles that you play. And there are many things and many projects that you're actually part of. So maybe, well, actually, before we even go any further, I want to welcome our listeners. I was just ready to get right into it, but I do want to make sure we welcome our listeners here and our viewers. Because, you're the reason why we do this podcast. We do this because we want to inspire you. We want to equip you with what you need in order to be the difference maker and the world changer that you're capable of being. And I say that every time, but it really is true. It really is true. I believe that every single person has genius, has tremendous value to bring to the world. And we want to be able to help you to do that. And even if maybe it's making connections in this process, and you get to meet somebody like Regina, and she can help you and point you in the right direction, support you along the way, or even just be inspired by what she's doing and see how, wow, if she's doing that over there, maybe I can do this over here. And so I'm just a big believer in us connecting and learning from each other. Afterwards, I would love to hear your stories, your comments. You can go to leaderstransformation.com. You can find us on social media. Leave us a note. Let us know what you're up to. And if you are already making an impact in the world and you want to be able to share that, the Facebook page that we have is a great place to do that. You are welcome to post what it is that you're up to. And if you like this interview, please go on iTunes and leave us a rating review afterwards. It really does make a difference in helping us to create a greater reach. One last thing I do want to mention is a book that I've actually been a co-author with, and this is Power Up Superwomen, and it is a book about courage and empowerment for women. So all the women that are in this book that have shared their stories, they went through difficult trials and tragedies and have come through to the other side, and they share how they did that, what they learned, so that you can be inspired and encouraged as a woman. And so, some of the situations have been in business, some, have been in relationships, health. It covers the gamut. So if you're interested in getting a copy of this book, then, and I wrote a chapter in there called Worthiness from Within, and I tell a little bit of my story and what I learned from it and how you can increase your confidence and your self-worth. You can get a copy of that on leadersoftransformation.com/resources. So let's talk about Regina and what she is doing. So I gave them a broad sketch. Why don't we dive in a little bit more specifically in terms of what exactly do you do, how you do it?
Sure. So I do private coaching, I do group coaching, and also speaking. I teach workshops of course, as well, and I help companies with their diversity strategies, as you mentioned before. But one process, a signature process that I have developed for the work in all these areas is called Powerful Leadership Transformation. And I also combine this process, of which I'm going to give you a little bit of an overview in just a minute, with conversational intelligence, which is not my IP, it's somebody else's, but I'm trained in it. And it's the ideal combination, because I'm already talking in my own work about co-creation, about collaboration, and all these values that we have for more functional workplaces and environments, and also as business owners. And conversational intelligence is also based on this principle of co-creation and creating trust. So my Powerful Leadership Transformation process focuses mainly on a self-empowering mindset, on a body-conscious and energy-conscious presence, and on effective action, also combined again with distinctive uniqueness. And you mentioned that earlier, that unique genius that we all have, right? So it's 4 elements: empowering mindset, distinctive uniqueness, body-conscious presence, and effective action. And we use this process so we can gain visibility, whether it's as a business owner or in an organization, so we can have our voices heard and show up more powerfully and really get what we want, so we can live bigger and better lives and also make a bigger impact, because we, of course, love both of it, and we all want to have that impact in the world as well, right? So I think that success isn't really only about hard work and about putting in the work and the passion. It's also, well, we've been told this lie about putting in the hard work. I think, yes, it's important to put in the work, but it's not the only thing. A big part of it is really that self-empowering mindset and stepping into a place where we can tap into that inner power that we all have, that energy that we all have inside of us, and also bringing it to the surface. And it's about that compelling business presence, and about seeing the tremendous value that we bring to the table, and about trusting that we actually can do it.
So how did you get started in this? Where, and maybe even talk a little bit about if there was a defining moment for you that led you to discover, this is what I want to do. This is the message that I want to share. Can you share a little bit of that with us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I came to New York about 7 years ago, but the truth is this started much earlier. Yeah, so I didn't have that business before, but just earlier this month, I celebrated my 55th birthday, and I realized that as I was looking back at my life, that every single phase of my life was a preparation for the chapter after that. And it's all been a preparation for what I do now. And it's not so much my educational background that led me to do this. My education was more like a bridge to where I am right now, but it wasn't really the basis of it. What really qualifies me to help people, and specifically women, transform and to inspire them to step into their brilliance is actually my own transformation. And just like the transformation of the women in the book that you mentioned, right? It's what qualifies us to do the work we do. And it's also my curiosity and my readiness to take risks and to be adventurous and to step into several different situations, to gain experience on 5 continents, to move by myself, and to just put myself out through the world. And my holistic studies and my fascination with diversity and all of this, right? It all comes together into this eclectic background, even my passion for dance. And that's what comes together in this specific work that I mentioned earlier. Now, you asked me for a defining moment, and there have been certainly a few, but one of them, I think, is really going through what we oftentimes call a failure, right? This starting over moment, and which forced me to rebuild my self-esteem and my confidence from zero, from a very, very painful experience. And I'd be happy to talk a little bit more about that. I've mentioned often on podcasts before, so I'm not going to go into all the details. But,
no, but yeah.
But it was a very painful experience with a business partner in Brazil, where I lived before New York. And it cost me not only my business and a stack of money, but it also cost me my self-esteem at the time. And I had to really start over from scratch, move to a different country, build a new network, and build that self-esteem and confidence again from zero. And in hindsight, I look at it as a blessing because it took me where I'm right now, and it took me to my true purpose. And at the time, it was not so easy to see that, though. And it required me to step out of victim mode and into that self-empowering mindset. And that's when I also used those healing tools that I had learned before, those healing techniques, and they helped me through that process. And it also catapulted me into a new life. So I've reinvented myself several times in my life because I'm somebody who I think I get easily bored and very curious, and I always want to learn and grow. So that, now I'm taking myself from one level to the next in my business, and I certainly want to stay with this business, but I always want to also take it to the next level.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that, because sometimes we think that it's this one transformational moment that is, okay, so I need to now, this is the thing that I'm going to do for the rest of my life, and I need to stay in this. And sometimes that is the case, but, at some level, you're always evolving. My guest that I spoke to last week, Isabel, she is still in the same space, but she evolved. She sold a business and then opened another business that would allow her to do all the things that she wanted to do, because there was more than what the previous business allowed. And I hear that in your, there's a theme here, right? It's like this evolution of who we are, and embracing that. I know that for myself too. It's like, I feel like I've lived several lives, and I'm only 46, 47, I guess now. By the time this is released, my birthday's coming up soon. And so, but it's this, evolution of us and who we are and what we bring, and how the pieces go together. And you mentioned about, having a business partner and so forth. And specifically, you lose money, but it's the confidence and the self-esteem that you lost. And you mentioned about having to get out of a victim mindset and move on from there. What did you do specifically to get out of that victim mindset and move on?
So first I did take some sessions with friends of mine who had studied similar techniques that I had studied at the time. And I also kept learning about neuroscience and about specifically the subconscious mind. So stepping into that empowering mindset requires more than just our conscious mind, because it's just the tip of the iceberg, really, right? So we now know that 5% of our behavior is driven by our conscious mind, but 95% of it is driven by our subconscious mind. So that's where we need to go, really dig deep and see, what's my learning here? What's my growth? How can I avoid a similar situation in the future? And what's the wisdom in it? Because I firmly believe that the function of our past is to transform it into wisdom, whatever the lesson was. And it's not to go back constantly and say, oh, this was better or this was worse, or living in the past and in this past pain. That's not the point, right? That's actually counterproductive. But we want to become the observer of that past and see, okay, what's the lesson in it? How can I transform this into something powerful? And how can I now use it to make a difference for myself and for others? And I have to also add that, I built up my confidence very, very, with a lot of effort over all these years. I was extremely shy as a little girl. I grew up in a small village, but I always had curiosity, and it pushed me out to the world. But it was also hard sometimes moving to a different place, a different country, a different continent with that shyness, and it lasted for quite a while. So I really had to move through that, and then all of a sudden it was all gone, and I had to rebuild it from scratch, right? But it's possible. It is really possible. Now I know how, and I know most of my clients don't start at that level. They start much higher, but it's still true that a lot of women do struggle with confidence, even if it's at a much higher level. And those and they also have their own experiences that have been holding them back with their confidence, and so that's what I hope to now.
So now in your book, you talk about speak up, stand out, and shine. What I loved about your book is that you actually give practical. You're not just talking conceptually how to be a speaker and get your message out there, but you're actually giving a practical step-by-step. So can you maybe unpack that a little bit for us, so listeners who might be interested or, would be good people, that this would be a good resource for them and where they're at?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wrote the book about a couple of years ago because I figured that the tools that helped me when I came here, and I was still in the process of rebuilding my confidence and my self-esteem, and I was building a new network from scratch in a new city after speaking Portuguese and Spanish for 7 years, and now in English again. And all of these, aggravating circumstances, to call it something, right, were sort of against me. So I had to really come up with tools that helped me move through that difficult period of time while I was still figuring out what my next business would be, what my next chapter would be in life, how to really pitch my business, which wasn't even completely conceptualized yet, and all these different things. And then I started speaking in front of audiences, yes. And these tools were what I came up with at the time to help me through that process. And they are tools that are not only for speaking in front of an audience, in front of a room, they also are really helpful for sales calls, for job interviews, for pitching, for any type of meetings or negotiations where you want to show up more powerfully and just feel better about it. Yes. So they are tools about how to mentally, physically, and energetically prepare for challenging situations, such as speaking.
Got it. Well, and I know that you're very passionate about female empowerment and diversity and inclusion. And so it's funny because, you remind me a little bit like, so I've had people in the past that they would say to me, oh, Nicole, you've done, you do so many different things. And it's actually not that I do different things. It's that I do one thing in different arenas. At that time I was doing, and I see that in you. It's like you are encouraging people, you are empowering women in particular, and you're doing it in different arenas in how you do it, whether it's speaking and teaching them how to speak on stage, whether it's empowering them within the corporate environment, helping them to be more effective leaders. I see that that's the theme. So when you're talking about corporate leadership and what you teach in companies, maybe give us a little bit more of a sense of what you do and how you do it from that standpoint. Obviously, this is a big conversation now, right? Is how do we have more diversity and inclusion when there's some men right now that are through the Me Too movement are actually saying, I just feel like I want to hide in my office and avoid any possible interaction where I might be construed inappropriately. And so it's almost creating fear for them. And that's not what you're about. It's actually about creating opportunity where we can work more effectively together. So can you talk a little bit about that?
I can. And,
I just gave you a lot there. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. It's a little broad, but let me pick it up somewhere first, like with the fear, for example, right?
Yeah.
So it's all about trust building. Yeah, that's also one of the reasons why I actually added that conversational intelligence technique or modality, I should say, onto my repertoire, because it is about trust building. It is about, it's also based on neuroscience, by the way, and it's about how do we build trust in conversations? How do we navigate more successfully through conversations? And we all know that diverse teams are potentially more innovative. And I'm saying potentially because they're only more innovative and more creative together when there's a basis of trust. Yes?
Right.
Because
Yes.
if you don't give people an environment, a safe environment where they can speak up, and by speaking up, I don't only mean, oftentimes it's misinterpreted as speaking up about something that's not right. No, it's not only about that. It's about sharing your creativity. It's about sharing your ideas, the tremendous talents and gifts that you have inside of you. And we have so much hidden talent and in our teams that we're not even aware of. So I think that's part of the work, right? And then through this work, you make your teams more productive, more creative, more effective. And at the same time, if you apply it more broadly, you change culture. You upgrade your organizational culture. Yes. So that's one part of it. I talk a lot about distinctive uniqueness. And this plays also into the diversity conversation, because I think when we as individuals become truly aware of what our authentic brilliance and our unique genius is, and we have the courage to bring it out and contribute it in a meaningful way, that benefits us, that benefits our career. Yes? Now, when we do that and we're fully aware of it, we have less reason to feel threatened by other people's greatness and by other people who are differently great. Yes, because we are all different for a reason. It's no coincidence or no accident.
Yeah.
7.7 billion people on this planet, and no one has the same DNA as we have, right? So we all have our stories, our talents, our gifts, and they come together into this unique background. And we want to also have people see that huge gift that's in that background. Yes. So I think, these are two elements that go together really well. And I did a talk about it, or rather an interactive workshop at the recent Diversity Leadership Alliance conference in Phoenix to very, very diverse audiences. We had 3 groups that day. And they were audiences composed of all levels from students to executives, mixed gender, all, races, ethnicity. So it was a wonderfully diverse audience, and they were very keen on finding out more about this, because they see concrete ways to apply it not only for themselves, but also in their teams, yes, at whatever level they are. So that's one other piece of it. I think for women specifically, there is a way to show up powerfully that doesn't necessarily come across as aggressive. And I know there's bias, and I know there's interpretation, and we deal with all these circumstances. Yes. But there is a way to mitigate that. And I think that's where our strength comes in with this work, where we can really do something. Yes. Also, I think, women still compete too much among each other. And I think I would just so much like to see that change. And so I'm trying to also inspire women to come together, whatever their race is, their background is, and really play together, and then bring their male allies in. I think, again, it's trust building. Yes, when you address a man to be your ally, why would they do that? What's also in it for them? Because there is a benefit. So yes, there's a business case that is money, but there are many other benefits that are oftentimes not talked about. Like, it has a positive impact on families, on communities, all these different things. If we have better decision making, all these different things that also impact the individual men. And also, I think we have to bust this myth that there are only so many seats at the table. It might look like it right now, but when we come really truly together and co-create more rather than competing so much, I think we can change that entire environment. And I know that's a big goal and a big vision, but I'm very idealistic about it, and I want to continue being that.
Yeah, I love what you said there about the women and bringing that point to light about women competing with other women. I recently interviewed Andy and Al. That it's a husband and wife team, and they actually go in and they work a lot with diversity as well, gender bias, and they actually brought this to light as well. And here you are saying it again. This is something that is an issue. You know, a lot of talk is about how men can understand and be more inclusive, having more women at the table, creating more opportunities, sponsoring them, being allies and mentors and so forth, and women saying, hey, I want to have a voice. But, you know, if we're actually fighting against each other, then, you know, it's ridiculous, right? It's like what do they say? A kingdom divided amongst itself will fall. So, you know, it's actually counterproductive. And what they were actually saying is that with all of this Me Too movement, we've actually we haven't moved, or we've actually even gone backwards, right, in certain ways, because we've created, there's confusion. Sometimes that does happen. You take a step backwards to take 2 steps forward, but there's a way that you need to do that, you know, with intention. And so I love what you said there. So for women working with women, practically speaking, what are some of the things that they can do to shift that bias that they have with each other? You know, because women have this tendency to be very competitive.
Yeah.
Which is why I've often had more guy friends than women friends, and I had more male clients than women clients traditionally. That's changing, but I just found there was like all this back and forth. It's like, oh my Lord, you know, it's not necessary.
Yeah, so we know where it came from, right? Especially in corporate, where, you know, corporate used to be a place, and still is to a large extent, created by men for men, right?
Yeah.
So in the past, there were very few seats actually at the table for women, because there were very few women who made it up to the top, because there were very few women in general. Now, the number of women has changed at certain levels, but it hasn't necessarily changed so much at the top. And and it's partly also because of women competing with women, although that's not the main reason. Yes?
Yeah.
Now, how can we, it's, you know, I mean, women do events, they do panels, they try to break that pattern. And I think there's a lot of effort in that direction. Now, I think in terms of practical tools that we can use to do this, to really support each other, you know, we are in meetings together. We see or we experience and witness situations where women are talked over by men sometimes. Yeah, so how can we help each other in that situation and back each other up, have each other's back, right? And say, hey, no, this is not, you know, she has a voice as well, so let us hear what she has to say, right? So there's ways of doing that. You can come together in your organization and actually discuss ways of doing this. Yes. And also, for example, point out specific achievements that a female colleague has had, for example, right? So we all get reviews, year-end reviews, or maybe mid-year reviews. And, you know, sometimes it's a good idea to go to somebody's, whoever that person is, that mentor or that decision maker is, or that review writer is, because it's different in every organization, right? And really say, hey, I had this experience with this woman. She did a really great job here, you know, really endorse each other a little bit more. I think that would help. So these are 2 specific ideas that come to mind right away.
Yeah.
How we can really help each other, apart from being a role model, which is also important.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point too, because women have a tendency not to brag on themselves, and
Mm-hmm.
they just do what they do. And so if we can recognize that in others, and I think that goes across gender as well, male as well, they're much more inclined to say, "Hey, I accomplished this. Did you see what I did?"
Mm-hmm.
And that I don't want to be stereotypical there. It also depends, I believe, on personality. Some
Yeah.
personalities are just more vocal and front stage than others. But we can do that, and we can encourage each other and even acknowledge, even just the fact that they feel heard and help build confidence in saying, "Wow, you really did a great job there." I think that'd be great. And of course, performance and results are still a priority. I mean, they need to actually be creating results. And I think it's about the best people filling those roles in the leadership, boardrooms and so forth. I think that's important. That
Yeah.
one of the things that I learned growing up, being a woman in business when I was very young and was not taken seriously, I looked at it as, rather than getting bitter about it, I actually took it as a way to get better and said, okay, well, what is it going to take for people to take me, men in particular, to take me seriously? What's it going to take for me to have something that people will stop and say, I want to hear what she has to say?
Yeah.
And so I used it to hone myself as like kind of a, sharpening, iron sharpens iron, as to sharpening the axe so that I could be more effective. And it got to the point where that's what happened. People all of a sudden say, wow, you know what? She's got something to say. Let her talk.
Right.
And so I could speak for myself at that point, because I was using it as a stepping stone. I was using it as a growth opportunity, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
Now, before we wrap up, but there is something I do want to touch on, because I know you're very passionate about this, and this came up in our conversation that we had, our pre-chat, is co-creation beyond collaboration.
Right.
There's a lot of talk right now about collaboration. Let's all work together. It just struck me because I've been having conversations with other people about this idea of co-creation as well. And you brought it up and I was like, wow, that's so interesting. This keeps coming up. So talk about the difference between those two.
So I believe that co-creation goes beyond collaboration. Okay. So collaboration is, okay, we're not working against each other, we're working together. Yes. It's more like cooperation in a sense. And co-creation for me goes beyond that, in a sense that we bring our best selves and our best talents to the table, and we create something bigger with all we have than we could create on our own. Yeah, so that's the idea behind that. And I also think that it comes into it flows into the potential discussion and into the potential conversation. We have all this hidden talent and we're not doing enough to bring it to the surface, to help people bring it to the table and show it to us. So that's also part of co-creation. As a leader, I have to take that proactive role and make sure that that's going to happen, because that actually increases the co-creational aspect of our teamwork together. And talking about potential, I just really wanted to add something quickly onto the previous thought that we were discussing, because I think it's just so important. Now, you were talking about the conversation you were having with yourself, right? So what does it take for me to get noticed and to get visible? I think that's a really, really important question we can actually also ask in salary negotiations, for example, because women have such a hard time with salary negotiations sometimes. So, always ask for a higher number than you really want. Yes. When you go into that situation, it's a whole different topic for a podcast. But the one thing that I wanted to point out is really it's a really good question to ask. If the answer is no, what would it take for me to get to that level? Yes. What would it take for me? What can I do to make this money, make this salary? And in that context also, talk about your potential. We just talked about potential, right? And not so much just looking back at what you have achieved so far, at your accomplishments, which is already quite a challenge for most women, but really talking about their potential, because most men talk about their potential and get paid for it, while women talk about their past, and that's what they get paid for.
Wow, that's a really great point. And I mean, it's a great place to leave it, perhaps, because I think, you know, if you think of, yeah, women do, we talk about our past and our accomplishments, and men talk about their potential. You know, what if we were to explore our potential and what we're capable of, and how would that be expansive? The what if question. I love the what if question, not in a endless loop kind of way, but in a way of, let's just imagine what's possible. It's like the what does it take question. It's expansive. So that's maybe a great place. I think for our listeners, I would encourage, go get a copy of Regina's book. Go to her website, which we'll make sure is in the show notes. Her website, transformyourperformance.com. But as I said, we'll have it in the show notes. You also have some free gifts that you wanted to share with our listeners. You have a complimentary consultation, a free video series. Can you talk a little bit about what that is?
Okay, sure. So, you know, my mission is really to help more women up to the leadership ranks. It's a big part of my vision, but also my mission. So we can have more balanced leadership in the world, and as a result, also, as I believe, more wealth and peace for all of us, so we can create that world where everybody can thrive. And this is why I'd like to offer 5 women on this call who are truly committed to make an impact with their work. And it doesn't have to be in that particular sense, sorry, but to make an impact for themselves and as leaders in whatever capacity, because we can be leaders in our personal lives, in our professional lives, and really give them that 30 minutes of my advice in a 30-minute complimentary consultation. And that is available on, and I have to read that, link myself.
We'll make sure, we'll make sure the link's in the show notes so they can access.
Yeah, okay. So I asked them to answer 3 questions, and then I'm going to choose 5 women because it's what's in the next couple of weeks available for that. And then for those of you of the viewers and listeners who are not quite ready for a challenge like this, I'd like to offer also my free video series about my Powerful Leadership Transformation program. And it's also available on my website. And I think we're also going to plug that link into the comments. Yes.
Yes. Wonderful. Thank you so much. And the book, again, is called, Regina's book is Speak Up, Stand Out, and Shine. And I don't know anybody who doesn't want to know how to do that. So we'll make sure the link is available to Amazon and to her website, and so that she can get all those resources from Regina. Thank you so much for coming and sharing a little taste of what you are doing in the world, the transformation that you're creating, and the impact that you're making specifically for women. And so I just so appreciate that there are courageous women out there that are, you know, being great examples, role models, and support teams for women to be empowered. So that's just amazing. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Nicole. Thank you, everybody who has been listening. And I look forward to hearing from anybody who really wants to connect with me, either on LinkedIn or on my website. There is also a contact page. And I'm always up for taking this discussion or any other questions to the next level.
Yeah, beautiful. And we'll make sure that all of those social media links and so forth, so you can connect with Regina, will be in the show notes at leadersoftransformation.com. And you could actually, so if you go to the website and you're looking for this specific episode, and maybe this is later on and it's not the top one at that point, it's not the most current, you can just type in Regina into the search field. And when we updated the website last year, that was one of the things that I really wanted to make sure, a functionality that we had on the website, is that you can just type in somebody's name and their episode comes up. So you can type in Regina, and her episode will come up, and the show notes will be there. So I'm a big believer in leaders of taking action, leaders of transformation taking action. And so what I would encourage you to do is something that you heard today, take it and apply it today. Whether maybe it is noticing how you relate to somebody else, if you're a woman listening, how you relate to someone else that you're working with who is a woman. How do you relate to leaders who are women? Guys, if you're listening, you know, how can you collaborate and open up the conversation? I think that in conversation, Regina mentioned it, having quality conversations is where this begins. And even looking for those opportunities for how can you co-create something together, something that is far more valuable than what you could create on your own. It's the 1 + 1 isn't 2, it's 11. It's that kind of concept. There's that multiplier effect. So, you know, consider that today, because Regina shared a lot of insight, and you know what, when we put it off and we say, okay, one day we'll take a look at that, think that through, you know, life happens and it doesn't happen. And so take something today, apply it. That's where the transformation happens. We'd love to hear your comments. You know, if you have questions, you can certainly reach out to Regina directly, or you can reach out to us. You can find us to the website. You can find us on social media as well. We'd love to hear your comments and your feedback and your questions. And as well, if you like this episode, again, go on iTunes and leave us a rating and review. It really does help us to create a wider reach and reach more people and inspire people to be the leader of transformation that they're capable of being. So we appreciate you. Thank you for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Leaders of Transformation real soon.